Today's story is called The Waitress Who Returned a Lost Wallet Not Knowing It Was a Billionaire's Test. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let us get back to today's story about a woman whose honesty was tested in the most unexpected way. Elena Rivera had worked at Sam's Diner for nearly 5 years. The smell of frying bacon and the hum of old neon signs had become the rhythm of her days. She was the kind of waitress who remembered every customer's order, not because it was her job, but because she cared. Beneath her calm eyes was a quiet strength, the kind that came from fighting invisible battles no one ever saw. That evening, the rain outside blurred the lights of downtown. Elena was wiping the counter when a man in a dark gray coat walked in. His shoes looked expensive, his voice deep and composed, yet his expression was detached, almost cold. He ordered a black coffee, no sugar, no cream. She served him, politely unaware that the man sitting before her was Adrian Cole, a billionaire CEO known for his ruthless precision and distrust of others. He was used to buying honesty and loyalty because he had long stopped believing they could come freely. As he reached for his wallet to pay, his phone rang. He stepped outside to answer, leaving his leather wallet on the counter. Elena noticed it after he left, sleek, black, and clearly expensive. She looked around. The diner was nearly empty. A few late-night customers ate quietly, unaware of the small moment unfolding. Elena sighed, softly picked up the wallet and flipped it open just enough to find an ID. The name read Adrian Cole. She did not know who he was, but she saw a few credit cards and a thick stack of cash, more money than she would make in several months. For a brief second, she thought of her mother's medical bills piling up at home. Then she closed the wallet firmly, whispering to herself, "Not mine." She hurried outside, but the man was gone. The street glistened with rain, empty except for the sound of tires on wet pavement. Elena tucked the wallet in her apron, deciding she would return it first thing in the morning. But Adrian Cole had not gone far. From across the street, he watched through the reflection of a tinted car window. His assistant beside him spoke softly. "Sir, you really think testing a waitress like this proves anything?" Adrian's eyes stayed fixed on the diner. "Everyone says they are honest, until no one is watching." He watched her lock the doors, turn off the lights, and walk home through the rain, still clutching the wallet. There was no hesitation, no sign of greed. For a moment, even he felt unsure of himself. The next morning, just as he sat in his office, a call came through from reception. "Mr. Cole," the voice said, "there is a woman here to see you. She says she found your wallet." Adrian leaned back in his chair, a faint smirk forming. "Send her in." Moments later, Elena walked into the marble lobby of Cole Enterprises, still in her diner uniform, hair tied neatly, eyes steady but nervous. The contrast was striking, a woman of simple dignity standing in a world built on wealth and power. When she reached his office, Adrian looked up from behind his glass desk, pretending not to recognize her. "You found something of mine?" he asked. "Yes," she said, placing the wallet on his desk. "You left this at Sam's Diner last night." He leaned forward, watching her closely. "And you did not take anything?" Her eyes narrowed slightly. "No." Should I have? His lips curved into a faint, testing smile. Most people would have. There was more than enough cash in there to tempt anyone. Elena's tone stayed calm, but her words cut through the room like glass. "I am not most people, Mr. Cole. I return what is not mine, even when the world thinks I cannot afford to." For a second, something in Adrian's face changed, surprise. Maybe even guilt, but pride quickly masked it. He stood walking around the desk, his voice low. "Or maybe," he said, "you are just smarter than most. Returning it in person to impress the right man." Elena blinked, stunned, then drew a deep breath. "You think everyone does things for advantage, do you not?" Adrian looked at her without emotion. "That is usually how the world works." Her voice did not tremble when she answered. "Then the world you live in must be very small." And with that she turned and walked out, leaving the billionaire staring after her, unsettled, intrigued, and for the first time in years, silently wrong. Elena left Cole Enterprises that morning with her head held high, her shoes clicking softly against the marble floor. Every step echoed like a quiet declaration that she refused to be defined by someone else's suspicion. She did not look back, not even once. In the corner office, Adrian Cole stood by the window, watching her walk out through the glass lobby below. He felt something unfamiliar, a small sting of regret. For a man who measured worth in numbers and strategy, he could not understand why one waitress's words lingered in his mind. Later that afternoon, Adrian's assistant Daniel entered with a hesitant look. "Sir, the marketing report for the Cole Cafe expansion is ready. But there is something else. The woman who returned your wallet, she works double shifts at Sam's Diner. I checked because you left her a business card." Adrian frowned. "I did not leave her anything." Daniel paused. "Then maybe she found it inside the wallet." That night, as Adrian reviewed the report, a line from the day replayed in his mind. "The world you live in must be very small." He closed the laptop, restless. Somewhere deep inside, he knew she was right. Meanwhile, back at the diner, Elena finished the late-night rush. She was exhausted, her hands smelling of coffee and dish soap. The same man who always left a big tip asked you, "Okay, sweetheart, you look miles away tonight." She smiled faintly. "Just a long day." Some people test your patience more than others. At that moment, the doorbell jingled. She looked up and froze. Standing there in the same dark coat was Adrian Cole. He walked in with that same calm authority, but this time there was something else in his eyes. "Coffee, no sugar, no cream," he said, taking a seat at the counter again. Elena crossed her arms. "You already had one last night. I am surprised you are brave enough to come back." His lips twitched into a restrained smile. "I came to apologize." The room went quiet. Even the sound of the coffee machine seemed to pause. Elena leaned on the counter, unconvinced. "Apologies are easy. Changing how you see people is not." Adrian nodded slowly. "You are right. But when I left that wallet, I did not expect anyone to return it. I have been in business long enough to know honesty often has a price tag. You proved me wrong." She blinked, unsure how to respond. "You were testing me." "Yes," he admitted plainly. "And I was wrong to insult you. You did not deserve that." Elena sighed. "Do you test everyone you meet?" "Not everyone," he said quietly. "Only the ones I wish I could trust." For a moment neither spoke. The diner lights flickered softly, reflecting on the rain-streaked window. Finally Elena said, "You could have just said thank you. That would have cost you nothing." Adrian's tone softened. "Gratitude is easy when you are used to trusting people. I am still learning how." She poured his coffee and set it down. "Then start by meaning what you say." He nodded, his voice almost sincere now. "I intend to." As he left, he placed a folded note under his cup. Elena waited until he was gone before picking it up. Inside was not money, just a business card with a handwritten message. "You deserve to be somewhere. Your integrity is an asset, not a burden." She stared at it for a long moment, her fingers trembling slightly. For years her honesty had cost her opportunities, friendships, even dignity. And yet here was the man who once accused her offering something different. Later that night, as she locked the diner doors, the wind picked up, carrying the faint echo of the city lights. She looked up at the skyscrapers and whispered, "Maybe the world is not so small after all." Far above in his penthouse office, Adrian watched the rain fall again, his reflection blending with the city. For the first time in a long while, he did not see a man who had everything he saw, a man who might have missed something priceless. And neither of them knew it yet, but that single test had just begun to change both their worlds. A week passed, and life at Sam's Diner went on as usual. The morning rush, the smell of coffee, the clatter of plates, everything seemed the same, yet something in Elena had shifted. The folded business card Adrian had left still sat in her apron pocket. Every time she touched it, a quiet unease stirred inside her. She told herself it meant nothing. Men like Adrian Cole belonged to a world built on power and distance. Still, there was a strange sincerity in the way he had looked at her that night, as if for the first time in years someone had surprised him. On the following Monday, a tall woman in a navy suit walked into the diner. Her name tag read Cole Enterprises. She approached Elena's counter with a polite smile. "Miss Rivera, Mr. Cole asked me to deliver this." She handed over a sealed envelope. Inside was a formal letter, an offer for a position at Cole Enterprises Community Project Consultant for the Cole Cafe expansion. Elena stared at the letter in disbelief. It was not a favor, not a handout, but a genuine role with responsibility and fair pay. Beneath the printed signature, a handwritten note read, "I believe honesty deserves opportunity." That night, Elena sat at her small kitchen table, the letter spread before her. The apartment was quiet except for the ticking of a cheap wall clock. She thought of the years she had spent serving others, enduring suspicion and condescension, always trying to prove her worth. And now the man who once doubted her offered her a chance to step beyond the diner's walls. Still, a voice inside whispered caution. What if this is just another test? The next morning she arrived at the towering glass building of Cole Enterprises. The receptionist recognized her immediately. "Mr. Cole is expecting you?" Elena followed the assistant through the wide hallways until they reached the executive floor. When the doors opened, Adrian was there waiting. He wore the same composed expression, but this time there was no arrogance in his eyes, only calm attention. "I was not sure you would come," he said. Elena met his gaze steadily. "I was not sure either." He gestured toward a chair. "I meant what I wrote. You showed integrity when no one was watching. That is something I value. I need someone like you to help lead this expansion." She frowned slightly. "You mean someone you can test again?" Adrian hesitated. "No. Someone who can remind me why we are doing this." There was sincerity in his tone that she could not ignore. "And what if I refuse?" she asked. "Then you will still have my respect," he said simply. For a moment, silence hung between them. Then Elena exhaled softly. "If I accept, I will not play games. I work hard, but I will not be treated like an experiment." Adrian nodded. "Agreed. You will answer to no one but me." Her brow arched slightly. "That sounds dangerous." He almost smiled. "Then maybe we will both have to be careful." Later that week, Elena officially joined Cole Enterprises. Her first day was a blur of introductions, meetings, and curious glances. Some whispered that she was the waitress the boss hired, while others simply stared. But she kept her focus, her voice calm, her back straight. Adrian watched from afar during the staff briefing. When one senior manager made a condescending remark about her background, Elena handled it with quiet precision. She replied, "Integrity does not require a title, it requires consistency." The room went silent. Adrian hid a smile. For the first time in years he felt pride not in himself but in someone else. When the meeting ended, he caught up with her in the hallway. "You handled that well," he said. Elena glanced at him. "I am used to people underestimating me." He nodded slowly. "That may be your greatest strength." She looked ahead, her voice firm. "No, Mr. Cole, my greatest strength is not caring whether they underestimate me." Adrian stopped walking, his gaze following her as she stepped into the elevator. The doors closed, leaving him alone, with a thought he could not ignore. Perhaps for the first time in a very long time, someone was teaching him what real leadership looked like. Weeks passed and Elena's presence at Cole Enterprises began to ripple through the company. She was not the type to speak loudly, yet her quiet discipline drew attention. While others boasted during meetings, she listened, took notes, and always found a simple truth that others overlooked. One morning, Adrian walked into the meeting room to find her already there, arranging the files for the presentation. The executives glanced between them with subtle curiosity. Since the day she joined, rumors had spread that the diner girl had some secret connection to the boss. Adrian ignored the whispers. He simply said, "Good morning, Miss Rivera," in his composed tone. Elena nodded. "Good morning, Mr. Cole." During the presentation, one senior manager interrupted her proposal with a mocking tone. "I am sorry, Miss Rivera, but running a billion-dollar project is not the same as running a diner." The room chuckled. Elena paused, her eyes steady. Then she smiled slightly. "You are right," she said calmly. "But in a diner, if you do not earn people's trust, they stop showing up. I suppose that is not too different from business after all." Silence fell. Adrian leaned back, watching as she held the room with grace. For a woman who came from so little, she had a command that no title could give. After the meeting, Adrian caught up with her near the elevator. "You handled that perfectly." Elena looked at him, half smiling. "You do not have to defend me, Mr. Cole. I have been underestimated before. It builds endurance." He studied her for a moment. "You call it endurance. I would call it strength." Her expression softened, though she said nothing. Over the next few days, they began working more closely. Adrian invited her to accompany him on site visits for the new cafe branches. The long hours in the car gave space for silence and conversation. One afternoon, as they drove past the river, Adrian finally asked, "Why do you always keep people at a distance?" Elena looked out the window. "Because when you let the wrong ones in, they can take everything." He glanced at her. "Someone hurt you?" Her lips tightened. "Someone lied about me. I was fired from my first job because my manager accused me of theft. I was innocent, but no one cared to listen. That was the day I learned honesty does not always protect you." Adrian's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "That sounds familiar." She turned to him, curious. "You too," he hesitated, then said, "My brother stole from the company years ago. My parents tried to cover it up. When I exposed it, they blamed me for destroying the family. Since then, I decided that trust is expensive and most people cannot afford it." For a long moment, neither spoke. The sound of tires on the highway filled the quiet between them. Finally, Elena said softly, "Maybe you just need to stop charging interest on it." Adrian turned his head toward her. There was a hint of a smile. "You make it sound simple." "Maybe it is," she replied. "Trust is not a business transaction." That night, after a long day at the site, they stopped at a roadside diner for dinner. The waitress brought their meals, and Adrian noticed how Elena instinctively thanked her and left a generous tip. He said, "You still do that? Do what she asked? Treat everyone like they matter." Elena smiled faintly. "That is because they do. You cannot build anything lasting if you forget who you are doing it for." Adrian fell silent. For a man who built empires, her words felt like an anchor, simple, grounding, undeniable. As they left a light, rain began to fall. Adrian offered his coat, but she shook her head. "I am fine." Rain never hurt anyone. He watched her walk beside him, hair damp, face calm. Somewhere between the echoes of thunder and the rhythm of their footsteps, something unspoken shifted. He realized he no longer saw her as a project or a reminder of his guilt. She had become something else. Someone who saw through the armor he had built around himself. And for the first time in his life, Adrian Cole was not the one testing someone's honesty. He was the one being tested by the quiet strength of a woman who had already passed every test life could give. The following month brought challenges neither of them had anticipated. As the Cole Cafe expansion moved forward, tensions grew inside the company. Not everyone welcomed Adrian's new project, especially those who saw Elena's influence on him as a threat. Rumors began to swirl. Some said Adrian was distracted, others claimed Elena was manipulating him. She heard the whispers in the hallways, saw the sideways glances, but chose silence. She had survived worse than gossip. One afternoon, as she reviewed financial proposals, Melissa Grant, the senior operations manager, walked into her office uninvited. Melissa had always worn her confidence like armor, her heels clicking like a warning. "So," Melissa said with a polished smile, "the former waitress has her own office now." Impressive. What is next? Running the company, Elena did not look up from the papers. If that happens, I will make sure everyone has better manners. Melissa's smile faltered. You may have fooled Mr. Cole, but do not think everyone else believes this fairy tale. People are watching, waiting for you to slip. Elena finally met her eyes. Then they will be waiting a long time. When Melissa left, slamming the door behind her, Elena exhaled slowly. The old anger she had buried, the sting of being judged and underestimated, rose again. But she steadied herself. She was no longer the girl who had been fired for something she did not do. Later that day, Adrian called her into his office. He looked tired, his tie loosened, a rare sight for him. I heard about the tension with the management team, he said. Are you all right? Elena crossed her arms. I can handle it. I am used to people doubting me. I know, he said softly. But it should not be like that here. I built this company to be better. She tilted her head slightly. Then maybe the company should start reflecting its leader. Adrian looked up, surprised by her bluntness. Meaning people follow the example above them. If you treat kindness like weakness, everyone else will too. He said nothing for a long time. Her words struck deeper than she realized. The next morning, during a board meeting, Adrian did something that caught everyone off guard. In front of the senior executives, he credited Elena by name for her contributions to the cafe project. He said Miss Rivera's work represents what this company should stand for: integrity, accountability, and respect. The room fell silent. Melissa's expression froze. Elena sat quietly, her hands clasped under the table, but her eyes glistened. After the meeting, she found Adrian standing by the window. You did not have to do that, she said. He turned toward her. I wanted to. They needed to hear it. Why? She asked. Because for the first time in years, he said, someone reminded me what leadership looks like. And it does not come from fear. Their eyes met, and for a fleeting moment the formality between them broke. Adrian's guarded expression softened, and Elena saw something she had never expected: humility. That evening they worked late, reviewing reports. The city outside was wrapped in quiet rain. The clock struck midnight, and the lights from the skyline flickered through the glass walls. Elena leaned back in her chair. You know, she said softly, you are not as cold as you pretend to be. Adrian smiled faintly. Do not tell anyone. It would ruin my reputation. She laughed for the first time in weeks, a sound that filled the office like music. He looked at her then, not as his employee, not as a symbol of redemption, but as a woman who had changed something inside him. Before leaving, Elena stood by the door. Thank you for standing up for me today, she said. Adrian nodded. You did that yourself. I only amplified the truth. As she walked away, he called out Elena. She turned slightly. Yes. He hesitated, then said, For what it is worth, I am glad you came into my life. She smiled faintly. So am I, Mr. Cole. Just make sure you keep deserving that. When the door closed behind her, Adrian remained alone, the echo of her voice lingering in the quiet room. For the first time in years, he did not feel like a man at the top of the world. He felt like a man learning what it meant to be human again. The next few weeks were the most productive Cole Enterprises had seen in years. Under Elena's guidance, the Cole Cafe project began to take shape across multiple cities. New designs, fair employment programs, and community partnerships all carried her quiet but powerful signature. Even the most skeptical board members started to admit she had turned a risky idea into a movement. Adrian watched it all unfold from a distance, often standing in the glass hallway outside the conference room as she spoke to investors. There was a warmth in her tone that he could never imitate, a conviction that made people want to believe again. But success, as always, attracted envy. One Friday morning, while Elena was reviewing progress reports, Daniel knocked on her door. Miss Rivera, have you seen this? He handed her a printed email chain. Her name was at the center of it, accused of mismanaging funds in one of the new cafe branches. Attached was a spreadsheet showing several unauthorized transfers with her digital signature. Elena froze. This is not possible. Daniel's face was pale. The board already knows. Someone sent it anonymously last night. Within hours, rumors exploded through the company. By noon, headlines began to appear online. Cole Cafe project under investigation. Adrian was in the middle of a meeting when the PR team rushed in. "Sir, there is a situation involving Miss Rivera," one said. Adrian's expression hardened. "What situation? Financial misconduct?" "The board wants an immediate review." He dismissed the meeting and called Elena to his office. She entered, her face composed but pale. The folder in her hands trembled slightly. "I assume you have seen this?" Adrian asked, holding up the report. "I have," she said quietly. "It is fabricated. Someone forged my authorization." He leaned back, studying her face. "The evidence looks real, Elena." Her jaw tightened. "Evidence can be manufactured. Integrity cannot." He hesitated, eyes narrowing. "You are asking me to believe you over a digital record?" She stepped forward. "I am asking you to remember who I am." The silence that followed was sharp. For the first time in months, the fragile trust between them cracked. Adrian turned to the window, his reflection dark against the glass. "I want to believe you," he said finally, "but until this is resolved, I have to suspend your access." Elena swallowed hard, then nodded slowly. "Do what you have to do, Mr. Cole. But remember this, I have been falsely accused before. The people who doubted me then never forgot how wrong they were." Without another word, she placed her badge on his desk and walked out. The office doors closed behind her, with a quiet click that sounded louder than any argument. That night, Elena stayed in the company archives long after everyone had gone. She pored through financial logs, access histories, and encrypted records. Every minute felt heavier than the last. Around midnight, she found a security log from Melissa Grant's account, showing remote access to the finance system at the same time the forged transfers were made. Elena printed everything, slid the papers into a folder, and stared out at the sleeping city. Her reflection stared back, tired, determined, and stronger than ever. The next morning, she walked straight into the board meeting without invitation. The executives turned in surprise. "Miss Rivera? This meeting is closed," one said sharply. "Not anymore," Elena replied, placing the folder on the table. "You are investigating the wrong person." She opened the documents page after page, revealing the timestamps and access records. Then she played the security footage from the finance room, Melissa Grant entering after hours. The boardroom erupted in disbelief. Adrian's eyes widened as the truth unfolded before him. Elena stood tall, voice steady. "Someone wanted to destroy what we built. But integrity does not need to defend itself. It only needs to be seen," Melissa stammered. "You cannot prove I already have," Elena interrupted calmly. Adrian finally rose from his seat. "That is enough. Security, please escort Miss Grant out." As they led Melissa away, the room fell silent. Adrian turned to Elena, guilt flickering across his face. "You could have come to me." She looked at him, her voice calm but firm. "You did not believe me the first time. I had to believe in myself." And with that, she left the room, head high, steps steady, dignity untouched. The scandal ended almost as quickly as it began. Within 24 hours, Melissa Grant's confession and the digital evidence cleared Elena's name completely. News outlets issued corrections, and Cole Enterprises released an official statement honoring Elena Rivera for her integrity and resilience. But the damage, the emotional one, lingered longer. Elena returned to work the next morning, but the warmth she once felt toward Adrian had cooled. She was polite, professional, and distant. He noticed it instantly. Every time their paths crossed, her eyes held calm restraint instead of trust. That afternoon, Adrian stood by her office door, unsure whether to knock. When he finally did, she looked up from her computer. "Mr. Cole," she said evenly, "what can I do for you?" He hesitated. "You can start by calling me Adrian again." She folded her hands. "That might take time." He sighed and walked in. Elena, I made a mistake. When I doubted you, I repeated the same arrogance I thought I had outgrown. Her tone was quiet but sharp. Doubt is not arrogance. It is fear. You still live in it, Mr. Cole. He looked at her, pained. You think I do not regret it? Regret is easy. When the truth is convenient, she said. Belief is what matters. When it costs you something. Adrian's shoulders fell. You are right. Elena closed her laptop. I do not want your apology. I just want fairness, not just for me, but for anyone who works here after me. He nodded slowly. Then help me build that. For a moment she looked at him uncertain. Beneath the disappointment she saw sincerity in his eyes, raw, unguarded, real. Fine, she said softly. But understand this, I will not protect your image. I will protect what is right. Adrian smiled faintly. That is exactly why I need you here. Over the next few weeks they worked side by side once more, but something fundamental had shifted. Their conversations grew deeper, not about business, but about values, about the kind of legacy worth leaving behind. One late evening, after a long day of site inspections, they stopped by a new cafe under construction. The walls were unfinished, the air filled with the smell of fresh paint and coffee beans. Elena leaned against the counter looking around. It is strange, she said. This started as a test. Now it feels like a beginning. Adrian stood beside her. It was never supposed to go this far. But it did, she said gently. Maybe it needed to. He looked at her, the harshness gone from his face. You taught me that leadership is not about control. It is about care. She smiled faintly. And you taught me that forgiveness is not weakness. They stood there in silence, the hum of the construction lights filling the space. Then softly, Adrian asked, Do you still think the world I live in is small? Elena turned to him, eyes glimmering. Maybe it is finally getting bigger. He chuckled. Thanks to you. She shook her head. Thanks to the truth. As they stepped outside, the city lights stretched endlessly before them. For the first time, Adrian did not see wealth or ownership, he saw possibility. That night as they parted at the parking lot, Adrian said, Elena, I know it might take time for you to trust me again, but I will not stop earning it. Elena smiled, her voice steady. Then make sure you start tomorrow, not with words, but with how you treat people. He nodded. I will. And as she walked away under the dim glow of the streetlights, Adrian realized something deeper than guilt or pride. He was no longer chasing redemption. He was learning to deserve it. The months that followed brought a quiet transformation to both of them. Cole Enterprises had never felt more alive. The cafes thrived, new programs were launched, and the company began to carry a reputation not just for wealth, but for humanity. And wherever Adrian went, people noticed a change. He smiled more. He listened. He treated even the lowest-ranking employees with a respect that once seemed foreign to him. But if anyone asked him what caused that shift, his answer was always the same. Someone reminded me that success without integrity is just noise. For Elena, life found a steadier rhythm. Her days were long, but purposeful. She had earned her place, and this time no one could take it from her. Still, there were moments, quiet, fleeting ones, when she caught herself thinking of Adrian not as her boss, but as the man who had once tested her heart without knowing it. One chilly evening, Adrian invited her to a charity event hosted by the company. The ballroom shimmered with light, filled with people in tailored suits and glittering dresses. When Elena arrived, the crowd seemed to part for a moment. She wore a simple navy gown, elegant but modest. For the first time, Adrian looked at her not as an employee, but as the woman who had rewritten his definition of worth. You look... he began, but stopped, almost embarrassed. Elena smiled softly. Like I belong here? He shook his head. No. Like you have always belonged everywhere you go. As the evening went on, Adrian gave a speech about the company's journey. When he spoke of integrity, his eyes found Elena's across the room. Sometimes, he said, you meet someone who teaches you that honesty is not weakness and compassion is not a liability. Sometimes one person's courage can rebuild what years of ambition nearly destroyed. The audience applauded, but Elena sat quietly, her heart full. After the event, she stepped out onto the balcony for air. The city stretched below, glowing gold beneath the night sky. Moments later, Adrian joined her, carrying 2 glasses of sparkling water. I should be thanking you, he said, but words never seem enough. She looked out at the skyline. You already did by changing. He chuckled softly. You make it sound like I am a better man now. She turned to him, meeting his eyes. You are not better because of me. You are better because you finally listened to yourself. For a long moment they stood there in silence, the cool wind brushing past them. Then Adrian said quietly, Do you ever think about that night at the diner? Elena smiled faintly. The night I returned your wallet sometimes. I think about how close you came to never knowing who I really was. And how close I came to never knowing who I could be, he said. Their eyes met and something unspoken passed between them. Not tension, not regret, but a quiet acknowledgement of everything they had endured to reach this peace. Then, with a teasing smile, Elena said, I hope you do not leave your wallet lying around anymore. Adrian laughed. Never again. I cannot afford another lesson like that. For the first time they both laughed freely. No distance, no power, no pretense. Inside the music swelled again, and the sound of applause drifted through the open doors. Adrian glanced toward the ballroom, then back at her. Would you like to dance? Elena hesitated, then placed her hand in his. Just one, she said softly. As they stepped back inside under the warm glow of chandeliers, it was clear this was not the same billionaire and waitress who had met by chance months ago. This was something different, 2 people who had faced judgment, pride, and truth, and somehow found something deeper than forgiveness. And as the music played, Adrian whispered, You know, this still feels like a test. Elena smiled. Maybe it is. But this time, we both pass. The morning after the gala, sunlight spilled through the glass windows of Cole Enterprises. The air felt different, lighter, calmer, as if the storm that had followed them for months had finally cleared. Elena arrived early as always, with a cup of coffee in her hand, and that quiet focus that defined her. She walked past the familiar corridors, nodding to employees, who now greeted her not just with respect, but with genuine warmth. For the first time, she felt completely at peace within those walls. When she entered her office, there was a small envelope on her desk. Inside was a handwritten note from Adrian. Sometimes leadership means knowing when to let someone else take the lead. I am stepping away for a while, not because of failure, but because I finally trust the company and the people to stand without me. You once told me integrity cannot be taught, but it can be shown. Thank you for showing me. Beneath the note was a single silver key. It was the access key to the Cole Foundation, a new branch of the company dedicated to funding small businesses run by honest, hard-working people. The first project was to be led by her. Elena sat back in her chair, emotion swelling quietly in her chest. For a long moment she simply looked out the window, letting the morning light blur her reflection. She had fought, stumbled, and been doubted. Yet here she was standing in the place once meant to test her, now trusted to build something new. Later that week she met Adrian again, not in the office but at a small coffee shop by the riverside. He was dressed casually for once, no suit, no armor of wealth or status. You disappeared, she said as she sat down. He smiled softly. I needed space to think about what matters next. And what did you decide, she asked. That legacy is not about money or buildings, he said. It is about the people who walk away from you stronger than they arrived. She nodded, eyes glimmering. So what happens now? Adrian looked at her, his expression calm, sincere. Now I let the person who taught me what real strength looks like lead the way. And maybe, he said, his tone quiet, I finally learn how to follow. For a while they just sat there watching the river flow. The sunlight danced across the water, bright and alive, like a reflection of everything they had both lost and found. Elena finally said, You know, when I first met you, I thought you were the coldest man I had ever seen. Adrian laughed softly. And now I think you are someone learning how to be human, and that is harder than being powerful. He smiled, the kind that reached his eyes. I could say the same about you. A comfortable silence settled between them. Then Adrian said, almost as if to himself, You returned my wallet that night without knowing who I was. You returned something much bigger since then, my faith in people. Elena smiled faintly. Maybe we both returned something that was lost. He nodded slowly. Maybe we did. Outside, the breeze carried the scent of coffee and spring rain. Elena stood reaching for her coat. Take care of yourself, Adrian, she said. And take care of what we built. I will, he replied. You have my word. As she walked away, the bell above the cafe door chimed softly. Adrian watched her go, realizing that for all his wealth, this was the first time he truly felt rich. Weeks later, a new sign appeared on the glass door of the foundation headquarters, the Cole Foundation building, trust one act of kindness at a time. Beneath it, in smaller letters, Director Elena Rivera. And somewhere in that quiet, simple truth, a waitress and a billionaire had found not just redemption but the kind of love that did not need to be spoken to be real.